basically have a hot water, gas engine, high pressure washer. This machine here has got a Honda engine. The Honda engine is what powers the pressure. You turn your Honda engine up, on, that's what gives you your high pressure. When you want hot water, you got a control box over here that's going to turn on the burner, give you that hot water. So we're going to start from the beginning. First of all, before you even turn the machine on, for those of you who were here last time, what was the first thing you got to check? We have water. Always check that we have water before you do anything on the machine. If the water's too low, there is a sensor on the tank on the bottom that will not allow the engine to turn on. So if the engine doesn't want to turn on, more than likely you're out of water.
What can you see? Where's the water measure?
Well, there is no measure, but if the water's low, see how you can
Oh,
see
you mean in that big tank?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Like we can visually see in the big tank.
There is a sensor at the bottom, but you don't have to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
is
but
water up the way up right?
yeah, water's all the way up.
Oh, I can see. Okay. Okay.
So if let's say the water is really low, if for some reason you can't start that engine, that's what I would check with the water. But regardless, you always want to make sure you have water so we do not damage the water skills. Okay? Once you have the water tank full all the way, then you have your engine start is right here. Okay? That's where you start your engine. So I'm going to stand on here a little bit. Back point. All right, so this is your ignition right here. What you do is you get your key in there, and you see you got your on and your start. When the engine's cold, you want to pull that out. That's your choke. Okay? The burner will be turned off. You just start the engine. If it doesn't start after the first or second crank, you turn off the choke, and then you crank it again. A tip that I like to do is I always pull the trigger while I'm trying to start the engine to relieve the pressure off the pump. That way it starts right up.
You pull this trigger you talking about?
Yes, the trigger and the gun. You want to show them the gun? That's the trigger right there. What I do is I always depress that trigger when you're trying to start it so it's not pushing against the pressure on the gun. Okay? Once the engine starts, you want to let go of the trigger and let the machine run for at least a minute so it warms up.
Question.
Go ahead.
Is that mandatory?
Pull trigger? It's not mandatory, but it's a good idea to do that. It makes it easier for the engine. Sometimes what happens is if you don't pull the trigger and it builds pressure on here, you might hear the engine go like it's forcing, trying to push that pressure, and then you have to pull the trigger to get that pressure off the line. So pull the trigger, start the engine, let it warm up for at least about a minute. Okay. Once you've already started using the machine, there's no need to turn this choker back on. You leave that off. Okay. So you start the engine. If it's already warmed up after a minute, you start washing. Okay. If you want hot water, this here is your burner controls. Okay. You turn this switch on right here, your burner will come on. When you let go, you should notice right here, when you let go, the burner will stop. You see the exhaust stop coming out of here, the burner will shut off. When you pull the trigger, it should come back on. Okay? Any questions so far? Feel free to stop me if you guys have any questions, okay? So, let's see here. Come on there. This one's got a high limit switch. So, when you have the burner on, it's going to go to its maximum temperature, which is about 180, 200 degrees. Okay? So, as you're washing, it's going to maintain that temperature. When you want to cool down the machine, you turn off that switch right there, pull the trigger for about a minute, the machine will cool down. So if you turn off the burner and you can touch the metal parts on the wand, the machine is cooled down. Does anybody remember why we cool the machine down?
So it's not too hot?
And why is it important that's not too hot?
Maybe to the touch, I don't know.
Well, the reason we cool the machine down is if you shut it off hot, with time, the calcium in the water, because the water is hard, it starts to build up in the coil, and when you shut it off hot, it'll bake inside the coil. Kind of like a pot when you boil water and the water evaporates, you got that white calcium down there. The same thing. So it'll reduce that, it'll keep your machine from getting built up inside. Plus, not only that, the residual heat that's built up in there, if you shut it off hot, especially if you leave it with pressure in there, it's really hard on the pressure relief valves, the coils, the hoses. So it's good to cool it down. Once you've cooled it down, you want to pull the trigger and release the pressure. That's how you shut it off, okay? So, go ahead.
So when you cool it down, all you're doing is turning the burner on.
That's all you do. Yeah. So when you want to get it back hot again, all you do is turn the switch on. The engine will be running, okay? As soon as you pull the trigger, when you start washing, within a minute, you'll have full temperature. You'll have 180 to 200 degrees.
So there's no manual control for the degrees? For heat?
No, this one does not have a thermostat. It has a high limit switch. That high limit switch is a safety. The machine can actually go into steam or even higher than 200 degrees. That high limit switch prevents that.
So, and this machine only gets to what point?
About 180 to 200 degrees. Yeah, depending on the temperature. If it's during winter, it might get around 180. During summer, because the water coming into the machine might be colder. Warmer, it'll get hotter to 200 degrees.
Maintain that degrees until you shut it down.
Yes. Yeah, when you let go, what you notice when you're washing, you'll notice the burner will come on. If it gets up to that maximum temperature, it'll shut off, but it'll go back down to that 180, and it'll just maintain it between 180 and 200. Okay? Any questions there? No. Okay. So that's how we turn on the engine, and that's how we turn on the burner. Now, as you can see here, I got my pointer here. You got an hour meter here, and you have an hour meter right here. Those 2 hour meters is what counts your hours, okay? So if you want to know how many hours the machine's been running, that's where you look. Right now it has 4.2 hours. Just keep in mind there's the decimal there. It's not 42, it's 4.2. So that's got 4 hours on it right now, okay?
Is there a limit that you can run it a day or?
The machine, you can run this 24 hours a day if you want. As long as it's been operated correctly and it has its maintenance, like it's on a regular basis, this machine is built to run as long as you want. You know, just as long as you change the oils when you're supposed to and service it. Okay? So that is how you operate the pressure, and that's how you operate the burner. Now, the high limit I was talking about is this little guy right here. And then right here, you have a pressure relief valve. See this black hose that goes down? Okay, there should never be no water coming out of the bottom of that machine. That hose, it just goes to the bottom of the machine and it just hangs there. If that machine for some reason overpressurizes, instead of blowing a hose and burning somebody, that's going to release the pressure at low pressure underneath the machine so nobody gets hurt. Okay, instead of blowing a hose or something. So that's another safety valve right there. So you have a high limit switch and you have a pressure relief valve. Okay?
So we would never have to touch that.
You don't have to touch any of that. I'm just telling you what you have for safety here. But as far as operating, the only thing you're going to be operating is this switch here to turn it on, this switch here for the burner. That's all you're going to be operating. There's other valves on here, like this one here. You don't need to touch that. Yeah, none of that stuff needs to be touched.
So, but when it releases on its own when it's automatically.
The valve right here?
No.
Oh, that up there. Yeah. Yes, it will only release if something fails. Yeah, and if you see that leaking, what you do, you need to have somebody contact us, right, and then we'll come and figure out what caused that, and then repair the machine.
Okay, gotcha.
So
okay?
We're gonna see about the maintenance oil because I'm not here the last time they got training. You want the time when you refill the oil or?
Sure. So let's talk about the oil. So the pump uses HOTSY pump oil. Okay, the pump does not burn oil, so it should never be low on oil. The way you would check the oil level is that you go on this side, and I don't know if you can see, I don't have a flashlight, but there's a sight glass right there.
The round one?
The round one with the red dot. It's
You put a light on it?
it's right in there. See that sight glass with the red dot?
Oh, okay. So where's the level is
Do you see that red dot in the middle of the sight glass?
that one?
That's where you want the level right there, the oil.
Not lower than that.
Not lower
fine,
than that. Yeah,
upper than that.
it should be. Now, keep in mind the machine has to be level. So if you're on an incline, it's not going to give you a good reading.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
You need to
you
level-
need to park it on a level ground and then check that right there. That's for the pump. the pump does not use motor oil. It uses the special pump oil that doesn't foam, okay? Now the engine, the Honda engine, that uses regular motor oil, okay? And that one you could use straight 30 weight motor oil or 1040 motor oil, but you do not want to put motor oil in the pump because it will foam until there's no oil in there and it will damage the pump, okay? Now the engine, unlike the pump, they keep cool two ways. They keep cool, air cooled, see that's why they have the fins, they keep air cooled, but they also burn oil to keep cool, just like your lawnmowers. That's why I say you should check your lawnmowers before use. So anytime before using this machine, highly recommend to check the oil. And this is where you check it, right on the other side over here. Let's see here, that's gonna be up there. So, right here, you probably can see it better on this side. This is your dipstick right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So this is the dipstick that you pull out to check the oil. Yeah. So if you're gonna check the oil, right here. So as a matter of fact, before we start it, first thing you wanna do is check, make sure we got water, make sure we check the oils, make sure all those fluids are good. Once those fluids are all checked, then we can start the engine. Once the engine is running, then we can start the burner. Okay? So one way I always know if somebody didn't cool the machine down is when they go to start it, that switch is still on. That means somebody didn't cool it down and let it run for a little while and then shut off the engine. Okay? So make sure you run it for a while while you cool down. So that's where you check the oil, right here, and you fill it here. As far as maintenance,
That's for the machine.
yeah, for the engine. The pump, you would fill it right here. Yeah.
Do we do the oil change?
No.
Thinking we don't.
You guys don't have to worry about that. I'm just telling you where you could check the oils, because just like a car, you do want to check your fluids before you take off driving, so nothing gets
And
damaged.
we alert our supervisors, okay. We
Yes.
won't change any.
Yeah, if you see that if you see any leaks, whether it's water, oil, or if the levels are low on the pump, then you guys can contact us and we come and take care of it.
Okay.
The engine, though, you would just add oil right here.
Okay, we would do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, if you guys got somebody designated, you guys can do that. Yeah, but that's where you do it. Because the engine, it does burn oil. So after maybe a few days, you may see that it's a little low on oil, like a half a quart, and you just add a half a quart.
So
Yeah.
Is there an actual checklist that will come, or once you do this, it's all in our minds?
Really, it's very simple. Check water, your oils, and you're good to go. That's pretty much all there is to it.
And as a reminder, he's filming too.
Yes. So, I mean, there's really not much to it. The other things you want to make sure is we use number 2 diesel. Okay, see this here? Black one. It says diesel on there, and it also says diesel right here. Okay? Number 2 diesel, you could get it pretty much any gas station. Okay? This one here does have a, like a float that measure your, sometimes that may stick, so you can use a flashlight or something if you want. But sometimes it does stick and it won't read it correctly, just.
Yeah, we have it on our other machine.
Yeah. So that's how you check your fluid on your diesel. Over here, you have gas for the engine. Regular gas. Okay? This one doesn't have a gauge. So this one here, you would have to check right here for the gas level. See what you got in there.
What's that tank? How much tank?
That tank, I'm going to look at it right now, and I want to say it's probably about a 4 to 5 gallon tank. Okay? The other one looks to me like a 7 gallon tank, maybe, of diesel.
What's that?
Okay?
About 2 hours?
No, it'll run longer than that. I'm not sure how much exactly, but you should get at least several hours out of it. Yeah. So there's more fluids you can check. Diesel, gas, oils, and water. Once you check all your fluids, you're ready to fire it up. Obviously, you don't want to go out there, start a job, and then get caught without fuel. Right. Okay? So keep in mind, you got 2 exhausts. You got the exhaust from the engine coming out of there and the exhaust from the burner coming out of there. You got an injection system. This is actually custom built. The machines normally don't come like this. But you got an injector here, which this one here looks like it's going to be on all the time. It is. You don't have to mess with this one. Okay? As long as this one's on all the time, you're on and off for the soaps is these right here. Okay? That's on, that's off, just like it's labeled right there. On, off. Okay? And it looks like they've labeled which chemicals they are. That's great. Looks nice.
And which one you say stays on?
This one, because this one here, when you open this, it allows all of them to inject.
Excuse me. And
But this is already on. Clockwise is closed, counterclockwise is open. But you don't have to mess with it. It's open all the time. Because this is your on and off over here. They all go into here. Okay? So that's how you use your injectors.
I have a question about the water tank.
Uh-huh.
What is the standard level when the machine automatic shut off? Because as my experience, the water, I'm on the level part, and then the water is still here, and my machine is shut off.
It shuts off? Okay, if that sensor is about a foot from the bottom of the tank.
Oh,
Okay.
But it's for real that this the level.
Yes.
It's not really empty when this.
No, it's not. It's not all the way empty. So, if you're down about a foot from the bottom of the tank, and let's say you're on an incline, it may not run. Yeah.
Just like on my experience, I'm on the level part,
Mhm.
and my water is still here,
Yeah.
and then my engine shut off.
Yeah. It could be that you were in an incline, and then that float went down and shut off. Yeah. So if you need a little more time, and your truck's like this on an incline, maybe if you park it level, it'll give you some more time of water from running on there. Okay.
So there's a water flow in there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think I've seen it right. It's right there. Yep. It's about a foot off the bottom of the tank. So if the engine doesn't start, that's the first thing I would check. Make sure you add more water to it. Okay?
question: is it mandatory to operate on level ground or whenever possible, or what?
You don't want to be like a 90, like a 45, because what happens is the oils of the engine, the pump, they all go to one side. And it's like your lawnmower when you're mowing, they don't really recommend it. You're doing like hills that are really steep. But I mean, if you're doing like, you know, not too bad, it should be okay. Yeah. So you do have a battery here. I don't believe, just to be sure, make sure the key's turned off, which it probably would be when you're not running it. That way it doesn't drain the battery. If the engine don't start, more likely the battery has drained. And you just put a jumper on it and get it started back up, okay? So any questions about the fluids, how to start the machine, anything like that?
Do we have to worry about the battery, or is it just a normal battery?
It's a normal battery.
We don't have to worry about it ever. I mean, it will probably eventually.
Well, the battery, when the engine is running, it's charging the battery. Yeah, so you really shouldn't have a problem. If something drains the battery, either there's a bad connection, or maybe somebody's left the key on without the engine running. Because the key's not there, but I think if you leave the key on, there might be a light that comes on.
If we didn't run this machine for 2 weeks, would it affect the machine in any way?
No.
Does it? Okay.
No. Now, I do recommend running at least once a month. Yeah, just like a car. You let it sit too long, what happens? Tires start going low on air, battery starts draining, you know, things start sticking. So yeah, if you run at least once a month, you're okay. Okay?
So now you said, so these batteries are not connected to this battery.
No,
So this is running on its own set.
exactly. This battery,
We could jump this one.
you can. Yeah, but this battery is connected to the engine, and this one doesn't have a generator on it. Let me see here. Nope, does not have a generator, so which means it's a 12-volt system. That engine produces the power to charge this battery when it's running, okay? Now also, let me see something here. I don't see a throttle on there, which is good.
Control the engine.
Good, this one does not have a throttle. The reason I'm mentioning the throttle is some of them do come with throttles, and I always tell everybody, do not throttle it down. Leave the RPMs where they're at. The machine is already set to its maximum performance, okay? And like I said, the engine produces power for the battery, right? It also produces power for your burner. So if you were to throttle it down, the 12 volts that it requires now is going to drop to 9 or 10 volts, and you're going to have problems with the burner smoking black, things like that. But you don't have to worry about that because I don't see a throttle, which is good. It's really good. Okay.
Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the pressure is going up. There's no wash here because the water is not leaking.
Okay, it leaks out of here?
No, inside the wash.
Okay, let me explain the O-rings now. Okay, so he's asking about, what about when it leaks from here? So this machine has two different types of quick connects, okay? You have the quick connects that you just pull back. The one for the nozzle is a 1/4-inch quick connect, which allows you to pull down. It's kind of like an air coupler and air compressor. You pull it down, you pop it out, okay? And then inside, you have a little O-ring. Okay, these O-rings are special O-rings. They're made for high pressure, high temperature. You can find the right size O-ring, 1/4-inch, at any hardware store. Problem is, they're not made for high temperature or high pressure. When you put those in there, they're just gonna blow out really quick.
So we'll be getting our supply from you, right?
We can get those for you.
You can put oil on them, grease on them before you put them in.
That's a very good question. He's asking if we could put any kind of lubricant on the O-rings. I highly recommend doing that because it's going to extend the life of the O-ring. It's going to make it easier to get your nozzle in and out. Okay. They do make in a tube. It's called dielectric grease. They use it for electrical connections. It's waterproof. It's clear. You can probably find it in any hardware store. Just ask for electrical grease.
One question. Do you recommend that this thing to be operated under the ring? Because sometimes at winter time, it suddenly rains, then we have to drive back in.
Sure. So that's a good question. So you have a bank cap up there to protect your burner. Okay, you got an engine here. The good thing is the only electrical motor you have is underneath the burner. If it's a downpour, I don't recommend using it. The reason is there's a chance the wind might blow some water inside that exhaust up there, and it'll go down. Underneath the burner, you have an igniter that makes a spark, and then that could short out. You might get water down, or you got a blower fan. That fan might blow the water into the motor and short that out. Okay, so, but if it's just sprinkling, you're okay. Sprinkling is not going to hurt nothing because you're pretty well covered up. You got a shield on top of the engine. You got a cover up there. Just a drizzle, sprinkle should be fine. But a pretty hard downpour, I'd probably wait till it stops. Okay?
And I have a question. If you need to power wash one block because the water tank is not enough for one block to power wash, is it possible while your water tank is on a half and then while you're using the machine you're gonna pour water? Is it
while you're running the machine, can you pour water?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not gonna hurt nothing at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're talking about the O-rings and the quick connects. Okay, so you got a 1/4-inch quick connect here. Okay, this is the one you're going to use the most because this is the one you're going to use when you change your nozzles. Okay, before I go to the other quick connects, I'm going to explain something about the nozzles. These nozzles have numbers on here. They're a little hard to see sometimes, but this here is a 15 degree, and I want to say it's number 4. The first number, 15 degree, resembles the color, yellow. It's the size of the fan. So a foot from the tip, it's about this wide. Then you got wider ones, and then you got more narrow ones. The wider the fan, the more gentle. If you're gonna wash screens, something like decals on a vehicle, you wanna use the widest fan you can get, which is a white one, 40 degree, okay? This is probably the number one that you're gonna use the most. The most used is a yellow, the 15 degree. They do make another one that's a red. We don't really like using those a lot because they're a little dangerous. Red is just a straight shot. That will carve a hole in the concrete. So, but they do make some other sizes that you can get. But if you look at all the nozzles, I see you have other pressure washers. They may use nozzles that look identical to this, but if the machine is a different size, they go by gallons per minute and PSI. If it's a different size machine, more likely it's going to use a yellow like this one here, which means it's the same fan as this one, but the hole, the orifice, might be bigger or smaller. So this one here, I think it's a 4. I can't really see it very well. But let's say it's a 4. If that one is a 5, you put it on here, it's not going to hurt nothing, but it's going to lose pressure because it's bigger. Okay? If that one is, let's say it's a 3, that means it's too small. When you put it on here, you pull the trigger, you're going to hear the engine because it's trying to push all that water through that little tiny hole. So the last digit is the most important one, the 4, 4, 5, 6. So we need to pay attention to that. Okay? There was a question asked about the nozzle size. When I get a chance, I'm going to get a light to see what this size is because I can't see it. You got a light on there? Let's look at this nozzle here. Okay, so that's a 5. Okay, so this is a number 5. Okay, what I can do is I can write it on, if we got a mark or something, we can write it on the label. The reason is, the nozzle that it says on there now, that's when the machine was original. But they have modified the machine. You guys requested a Honda, so that's what we put on there. So the nozzle might be a little bit different. So we're going to make sure we mark the number 5. So it's a number 5 nozzle. Oh, we already did. Yeah, it's a number 5 nozzle. So that's what we need to write on that label to make sure that that's what goes on there, okay? So now you can buy the green one, which is a 25 degree, a little bit wider than this, and then the white one, which is a little wider. They're all going to be 40 degree, 25 degree, 15 degree, but they're all going to be number 5, okay?
The 15 is the less other than the red one?
So the way it goes is the red is straight beam, like a cutting beam. And then the 15, which is about that wide. And then the green one's about that wide, it's a 25 degree. And then the white one is a 45 degree, which is your widest. Screens, decals, things like that. The pressure doesn't drop. It's still the same pressure, but because you widen the fan, it's not as aggressive. It's not going to peel as much, okay? So when you put these in, make sure your O-ring's in there intact, okay? So when you pop it in like that, you see how it's not all the way up? If you pull the trigger, what's going to happen? It's going to shoot it out. Then you're going to lose it or something. So what you do is you make sure you press all the way and pull up so it goes up. Now it's locked in there, nice and tight, see? You can adjust your fan whichever way it's going. What I usually do is I twist it, pull the trigger, see where it's at, and then twist it wherever you want. I would never, ever put your hand in front of here while you're pulling trigger, okay? Ever, because this machine, I know it's at least 2,000 pounds or more. Even 1,000 PSI can hurt you really bad. If you go to the car wash, they're probably doing about 3 gallon a minute, 1,000 PSI out of the car wash when you go wash your vehicle. Even that can hurt you, okay? But this is a lot more power. So none of this, wash your boots, and definitely don't point it at nobody, okay? So this is the 1/4-inch quick connect right here. We already talked about the nozzles. Let's talk about this other quick connect over here. This one you're not going to really mess with much. Yeah, I'm going to get to that point right now. So see this one here? That's a quick connect as well, but that's a 3/8. The only reason I'm pointing this out is it also has an O-ring in there, so if it's leaking, more likely the O-ring's bad in there, just like the one that it has in here, okay? You don't really have to mess with that at all. This is going to be the only one that you're going to mess with right here, okay? But you do have a 3/8 over there, and you do have a 1/4-inch right here, okay? And so that's that one there. Now you have another coupler here. This one's a little different. This is what we call a twist type. The reason we put these on here is because these handle any leaks a lot better. They hold up a lot better. Before we used to put the quick connects on here, but what happens is when it starts leaking, it'll burn your hand, and we don't want that. So these last a lot longer. This one also has an O-ring inside this part here, okay? But this was metric. This is like a 22 millimeter, somewhere around there. We also stock those, very high pressure, but these last a lot longer, okay? So if you ever see it leaking, this one here, you'll see it leaking here. More likely it's the O-ring that went bad if it starts leaking from right here or the back here, okay? On this one, if this O-ring goes bad, what you'll see, it'll start spraying from the back of the quick coupler. It'll start spraying out of there, okay? So that's what's going on there. They're very easy to pop out with this flat screwdriver and pop in another one, okay? That dielectric grease, very good for that. I've seen people put Teflon tape here, try to stop the leak. It doesn't seal here. It seals inside there. The O-ring wraps around that nipple right there, and that's how it seals. Okay, now the nice thing about this one here, you don't need no tools. The way you connect it is to just put it in there like this, and then you just twist. Just like that. No tools. Now, once you put, if you put lubricant on there, it'll make it much smoother to twist this. So when you're washing, you can actually do this a lot better, and it'll be much smoother. When you take it apart, put it on, be much smoother. You can also put some grease on the threads there, so it makes it easier to put on and take off. Okay? Once it's nice and hand tight, snug, you don't over tighten it, you're ready to go. You pull the trigger, you're ready to start spraying.
Have the nuts ever been known to break? The black?
The only time I've seen these break, when they drop them on the ground, I've seen them snap. That's a very good question. You know, you want to treat this with care. Parts do break. You know, if you drop this, I've seen people lean on like this, like if it's a cane or something like that, and they end up grinding or breaking the nozzles. I've seen nozzles where they're grounded down to the bone, where they're not even spraying, the pattern spraying is all distorted. Okay? So, yes, you don't want to drop it because it can snap right here. If it's leaking from here, more likely this is worn or it's got dropped and it broke inside here. Okay? So, the way we operate this, proper way to wash is you pull the trigger, you start washing, let go, pull the trigger, start washing, you let go, okay? Don't do this. I don't know if some of you might remember what I said about that. When you do this rapidly, what you're doing is you got 6 check valves on the pump, you got a regulator valve, you got pressure switches, you got all those different valves on the machine. Every time you do this, all those valves are going boom, 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 boom. So what happens is it will prematurely start wearing. So yeah, don't do that. Proper way is pull the trigger, do your washing, you let go, pull the trigger, start washing again. Okay, now another thing that I want you guys to remember is when you're washing, the water is going through the whole system. When you let go of that trigger, if you put the machine down, let's say you're moving trash cans or you're doing something like that, 4 to 5 minutes, perfectly fine. The machine's running. Even with the burner on, you're perfectly fine. But if you're going to be 30 minutes, an hour, or something like that, best thing to do, if you're going to be only about 30 minutes, you don't have to cool it down. What you do is turn off your burner, okay? Shut off the engine, release the pressure, and then go do what you need to do. 30 minutes, an hour later, come back, turn on the engine, turn on your burner, and you're good to go, and you keep going. But the reason I say do that, instead of letting it sit there run and run and run, is when the machine is running without pulling the trigger, the water has nowhere to go, so it circulates, okay? And it can get hot after a while. Let me check something real quick. On this one here, it looks like okay, this one goes into the pump. So yeah, that rule applies to this machine. It will start getting hot with time. So if you're gonna be more than 4 or 5 minutes, you're gonna shut it down.
5 minutes max.
Yeah. Now, if you think about it, if you sit here for 5 minutes, it's a long time. It seems like, well, 5 minutes is nothing. But if you sit here and time it, it's quite a bit of time.
On a machine.
Yes.
It's boiling.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very easy to do. Let's say, okay, you know what? I got to go to use the restroom, take a phone call. Come over here, turn the burner off first. You don't have to cool it down because you're going to come right back to it. And then you come over here and shut the engine off, release the pressure, go do what you got to do. The only time you want to cool it down is if you're done for the day, or if you're going to be more than an hour or 2 hours to come back to the machine. That's the only time you cool it down, okay?
And when you cool it down, you just shut the burner off and let it run, and then you turn the key on.
Yep. And how long do we run it? To cool it down, how long do we run it?
1 minute.
Not necessarily. It could be 1 minute, it could be a little longer.
It depends on the...
You go by the feel.
Touch, yeah.
If you touch this here, if you can touch it and it's not hot, it's cool. But you're right, usually about a minute. Usually about a minute. Now, it takes about a minute to heat up, so it's going to take about a minute to cool down. Okay? So, any questions so far?
Just go back to about the oil. Do Does the machine or the truck, does it come with funnels, or do we have to provide the funnels that we want?
You have to provide the funnels, yeah.
The control of every handle.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to, you see this handle here? This here is what they call a variable wand. It has two ferrules, and it has a high pressure nozzle, and then it has a nozzle in here with a big hole in it. That's your low pressure nozzle, okay? I really like this setup for a couple reasons. One, this allows you, we're talking about washing delicate things. Let's say you're washing something that's delicate, you do a couple things. You could put a wider nozzle, or you could stand back and gradually get closer, and if you see if it's starting to really put a lot of pressure on it, back off again. You could do that. But the other thing you could do is you have access to this. You could open this up, and the other nozzle will come on, and you start reducing the pressure, okay? The more you open it, the more the pressure is going to drop. So you got adjustable pressure here. That's a really good feature. As long as these are all shut off, you're not going to inject no soap, even if you go high and low pressure, okay? The only time you're going to inject soap, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, is how to use your soap injectors here. These work off of low pressure. That's why you have this. That's the main reason for this. So let's say I want to use odor eliminator, okay? What you do is you open this valve on, okay? If this is on high pressure, even with the valve on, it's not going to inject soap. You have to go to low pressure for that to start working. So what you do is you open this up, and you start injecting. It's going to take about a minute because it has to go through all the coil, all the hose. So once it comes out, you're already injecting soap. Now, let's say I want to rinse the soap. So now what you do, you don't even have to come over here and shut it off. You can come here and go back to high pressure. It's going to run for a little while until it flushes out, but it's eventually going to stop flowing, and you're going to go to rinse. Okay?
Is there, do you open it all the way, or to let
Enough for the pressure to drop.
as far as letting the soap out?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as letting the soap out. Once you see the soap come out, if you want to rinse, you just close it. Okay? Now, if you want to save on your chemicals, what I usually do, you'll notice when you're washing, let's say I'm washing a truck, and I just want to wash the back. As soon as the soap comes out, what I do is I shut off this soap, because in the system, you probably got about 30 seconds of soap coming out. So once the soap comes out, I shut off the soap, and I inject all the soap. Even if you go high pressure, still going to shoot it out because it's already in the system. Yeah, that's how you save on some of the soap. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. So obviously you don't want to have all these on because it's going to mix all of them. You only want to turn on the one you want. So if I have this at high pressure, is it going to inject soap?
No.
No.
Not even with the valve on? Okay, so we got to have low pressure. Good deal. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about is the hoses. Okay. You got a lot of hose right here. I want to say it's at least 100 feet. It's a good heavy-duty hose, steel braided. Okay, but you don't want to run it over. The reason you don't want to run it over is because it's got steel braids. It'll crush it, and just like a coat hanger, when you do this, you twist it, it gets weak and it'll burst. Okay? So do not run the hoses over.
Could I ask you a question about
Sure.
the fluid again? And we go back to the soap. At the end of the day, you're gonna put it away. Is it called for to run the soap out of the lines, or just leave the soap in the lines? Would that harm it at all?
That's a very good question. Now, this one here has what's called a downstream injection, which means it goes after the machine. None of the soap is going to go into the coil or the pump or any of that. It goes from the chemical tanks through the injector, out the hose, and out the wand. Okay. So in this case, it's not that critical. I still would rinse it though. That way you don't get no buildup in your injector. Right. So yeah, that's a very good idea. What I would do is just shut off your valves, go to low pressure, pull the trigger until you see no more soap.
Rinse the line out.
Yeah, rinse the line out. Once you do that, you go back to high pressure, and you're done. That's all. That's a very good question. When it's really more critical is when you have an upstream injector, which is usually mounted on the dash, and that one goes through the pump, it goes through the coil, and that one's more critical because that one, if you leave the soap in the coil, it may or may not be good for it. Okay? Any other questions there? So, as far as this hose reel, I like to unreel the hose. I know sometimes it might be a little harder, depending how much space you got. But typically, if you unroll the hose all the way, when it comes to rolling it up, it's a lot easier. The reason is, if you only unroll it halfways, when you pull the trigger and you release the trigger, this is doing this motion like this. This here is going to start expanding to the point where you're not going to be able to roll it. So it's going to be kind of hard. You're going to have to pull it out by hand and try to unwind it. So it's probably a better idea. What I usually do is I stretch it out, and if you don't need all that hose, I leave most of it right here. That way you can roll it back up. Okay, that's what usually I do.
Taking it out every time.
Yes. Okay, now here's the other thing. This is a really nice reel right here, nice and heavy duty reel. You do have this right here, what that is, it's more of a resistor, so it doesn't unroll and roll really fast. You can adjust this so that it goes smoother. It probably needs to be a little more adjusted. That's in case it rolls really fast. You could tighten it slowly a little bit more, and it'll give some resistance so it doesn't unroll too fast. But where you lock it is right here. What you do, see that nubbin right here? What you do, when you're traveling and you're transporting this machine to a different location, it should be locked, okay? So it doesn't unroll on you going down the road. But when you're getting ready to use it, you always want to make sure you pull this out, go up, and then lock it on top of that nub right there. See that notch? Pull out and lock it right there. That releases it from that pinhole there. That way, when you pull and release the trigger and this thing's doing this, it's not going to bend the pin, okay? Because it can, with time, possibly bend your pin right here and put some damage or wear to the reel. So yeah, unlock it when you're using it. When you're not using it, make sure it's locked in one of these holes. Okay? That's pretty much it. Let's see.
Yeah, I got a question.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Do we have this set up? I don't know. So I'm having this set up here. So when we're loading water in from fire hydrants or whatever, and it's coming through here.
So, Mr. Brown had a connection for filling it one way, but the other way is to fill it to the top.
Right.
Yeah, so he has the connections for that. I don't know if you guys connected. Do you guys connect it for a fire hydrant, or how do you guys? No? Okay.
Where we can get our water source from the hose?
You want to use a hose.
Oh, go through the top.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good question, Manny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no fire hydrant.
Same thing.
Is there
Through the top.
is there a hole up here?
Yeah, he said.
Yeah, there's a hole up there. Have debris blasting back at you, so you definitely want eye protection, okay? Hearing protection is also good. Gloves is also good, so you don't touch the hot parts on here. Most of this won't get hot, but the metal parts will. So your gloves, eye protection, and even hair protection would be good. Some people like to wear rain suits and stuff like that. But that's, your preference. But yeah, that's a very good question for safety. If you want to make sure you don't slip here, obviously slip-resistant shoes are good. Okay?
Let's hypothetically, we got a lot of debris in that. Where would we be checking?
So you have several filters. You have one here.
Okay.
That's your gas filter, and there's also one underneath the cover up there.
So and you would see.
But that's your main one there. Yeah.
You see that? That's what we
You might see it.
okay.
Yeah.
We got to build up. Okay.
And then you also have a water filter on that side over there.
This rolls out, right? Is
Yes.
there any reason that we should roll it? There's
No.
reason we should.
No. That's for the maintenance guy. Yeah. Now, the water tank, make sure the lid is always on there. You don't want dirt, leaves, all that stuff going into that water tank.
Right.
Okay? In time, you might get a little bit of algae, a little bit of green buildup in there. Easy fix for that. They do have these swimming pool floats. They're only about a 1 inch. I'd use probably a little small one. Put one tablet in there. You just throw it in there and let it float around. That'll take care of all the algae. Okay? But dirt, leaves, all that stuff, keep that lid on there so you don't get no trash in there. Okay? There is a water filter there that you can check, but maintenance guys would be the ones doing that. But if you need to know where it's at, it's right next to the tank right here. That'd be this guy right here. That is the water filter right there. So if that gets plugged up, more than likely you'll lose pressure. Just got to be careful that you put it back together right, because if it's not put together right, it can suck air and then you won't get the pressure back up. You'd have to force feed it.
How large did you say the water tank is?
The water tank is probably going to go about a.
How large?
How large? That looks like about a 200-gallon water tank. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's fire it up. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the trigger here. And if you don't want to, let's say you don't want to feel that kickback when you start it, you can also open this to low pressure. Okay. Pull the trigger here. Pull this out, and if it's cold, it should turn on. Pull it back in. Okay. So you see how I did that? As soon as it started, I pushed the choke right back in. Don't let it run with the choke out. Okay? So I'll release the pressure. I got my trigger here. Pull it out. Start it. Let go of the trigger. Put that in. Let it warm up. So we're going to let it warm up for a little bit. Okay. If you want to increase the pressure, you pull the trigger. As you go like this, it'll increase the pressure. Now you got high pressure. Low, high pressure. When you want burner, when you want hot water, turn that on right there. Light comes on. Okay? Pull the trigger, burner comes on. See the stack up there? You let go, should turn off. Pull the trigger, turn back on. Okay? If it doesn't turn off when you let go of the trigger, that's not good. We need to make sure it does, okay? So, let's try is it okay to let a little bit of soap out? Yeah. Okay. So let's try disinfectant. Okay. It's gonna take about a minute to come out. I don't know if that one foams, but if it does, you'll see it. It may not foam? Okay, let's see. There it is. You see that? So that's your soap right there. Okay, so now it's still on, right? I'm gonna turn to high pressure. Watch how long it takes to rinse out. There you go. Takes about that long. Okay? So let's say I'm done washing for the day. First thing I'm gonna do is what? Turn the soap off. Next, turn the burner off. Go ahead, turn the burner off. There you go. Then I'm gonna pull the trigger until this is cool to the touch. But it's not hot. See that? That's okay right there. It's not burning hot. So now you can kill the engine. Pull the engine. Okay, so we flushed the soap already out. We turned off the soap. We turned off the burner. We ran it for a little bit. It's warm to the touch, but it's not hot, so it's cooled down. The last thing we do is release the pressure. Point in a good direction, release the pressure. And then we roll up our hose. I like to put the wand close to the machine and then just roll it like this, okay? Make sure you don't wrap yourself. And then just, whoop.
So would you disconnect before you do that?
Well, yeah, I think last time what we said is we take the wand off. So what you do when you take the wand off, you know, obviously it's gonna have some water in it, so keep it away from yourself. And it should be cooled down already, right? And you pour it out. Now the wand could possibly go here.
That stays intact.
Yes, this stays intact. So the wand could possibly go here with this up or inside the truck. Okay, this right here, you could roll it up the way you had it on it right now. You take this off of here, so it off the notch, so it locks in that hole, like that. Okay, you got it. So either this could be tucked into there.
Before you put that away, can I get one question?
Sure.
With your line, and I'm going to go on what I've seen DPW do. At sometimes when they're cleaning. And they don't need pressure, and they just need a quick washout, they use just the handle.
So they're using the hot water, just the heat, no pressure.
I guess it could be hot water, could be cold, I don't know which one. But I just seen them that they disconnect and they sit over here.
Oh,
and
okay.
And without the wand. But
That's
just the
perfectly
hand-
fine. That's perfectly
but
fine.
The machine needs to be on.
Well, yeah, if the machine's not on, there's not gonna be no water coming out.
So what was the question?
He wants to know if that's okay to do that.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
Do what?
I mean,
It's not gonna hurt nothing.
it's not going to hurt.
No, it's not gonna hurt. As long as you have water in the machine, you're good. So let's say I just want the hot water or even cold water. Let's say I need some water to rinse something. If you have this turned off, it's gonna spray just a straight beam. It's not gonna be high pressure.
And it's not going to be pressure, it's just going to be just
You can
like-
put your hand in front of it, it's not gonna hurt you.
like drain.
As long as it's not hot.
Right.
Okay, if you have hot water,
It's going to be
it's the heat you have to worry about. Okay, but if it's cold, it's not gonna hurt you.
And without the wand, it has no pressure.
No pressure. It has pressure, but not enough to
Not
hurt you.
enough to-
Yeah.
So like when we let's say around here we hypothetically we have drains around our building that sometimes needs to get flushed, but we don't want to use the hard thing. I bring it over, sand over the hole, and
Sure.
you know I might have some chemicals already in there.
You could do it through here, or you could take the nozzle off on the wand.
Right,
And you could do that as well.
but that'd be pressure there.
No, because he took the nozzle off. There's no pressure. That hole on the end of there is the same size hole as this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that nozzle, the orifice that gives it that pressure. But just with or without a nozzle, you still point it in a safe direction.
Right.
Okay, you don't point it on your face or anything like that, because even though it's not a lot of pressure, it still does have some pressure. Yeah.
You know, man, and I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
because
guest viewer.
you know now is the time to
Guess
ask
you-
those kinds of questions. Because before we start modifying, you know what I'm saying? Outside of what is just instructed.
Okay.
Now, you're right. I'm glad you asked that now.
Make sure that you lock this when you're going down the street, or you're going to be fishing down the freeway with the.
And
Yeah.
also, you said that this may need to be adjusted because when you were doing the thing, this really was.
Yes, what this right here, what that is when you put this on like this, it gives it some resistance so it doesn't unwind too fast. So all you do is put a wrench here and loosen it or tighten it, and then when you lock it like this, if it's too tight, let's say you can't push it down, that's too tight. You loosen it up and you push it down. If it's the resistance that you like, that's where you leave it.
But isn't locking it? Oh, no. That's
No.
unlocking.
See, when you go up like this, that allows it to go freely.
Right.
Okay? But let's say you want it to have a little resistance so it doesn't unwind too fast, then you put it like that.
So this doesn't have nothing to do with
With locking
when
it.
you, no, when you
Operating it?
engage the thing. And
Yeah.
then you let it go and this move a little bit. That doesn't have nothing
No,
to do
has nothing to do with it. This is your unlock and lock.
Right.
Okay? Other than that,
There's a restaurant and the guest.
this one does not have a gauge.
Not have a
No,
gauge,
so
but,
you-
only the dish have.
Only that one has a gauge.
How do you know that? It's empty.
You get a flashlight
Yeah.
and you look at it. How do you know when your lawnmower is empty?
Oh,
Same way.
Okay.
So and you said there's
Okay.
nothing inside the cab that we have to turn on for anything.
Well, use the plastic.
Nope.
Everything's out here.
The truck and the machine, totally individual. The battery is charged by the machine. Everything's ran by the machine, on the machine. He asked about the sled here. This sled here, it comes out, but you really don't need to do that. The only time it's for the maintenance guys when they go to maintenance. Yes. Okay?
This closes to
Yeah,
Yes, that closes up.
said we don't have no business pulling it out. Okay.
Yeah. So no, do you guys have any questions on the O-rings, the couplers, the engine itself, the burner, hoses, anything like that?
So back to the O-rings.
Mm-hmm.
The only O-rings we would be replacing would be here. Is there an O-ring on this one? Oh no, you said here.
Yes.
Okay. And this is a metric, right?
Metric. We call them Hawk O-rings.
So we need.
So I've already emailed Mr. Brown
Oh.
a parts list in case you guys want to have some spare parts. I highly recommend having a couple of these, a couple extra nozzles and O-rings, because the last thing you want is to go to a job, you got a lot of work to do, and you lost the nozzle. Right. Now you can't do nothing. Or you can't wash because the O-ring's blown out. A little simple part can put you down. Yeah.
We don't need to change the O-ring up there.
That one, because there's no on and off, it wears out more when you take it on and off. Okay. So that one there's probably going to last you like probably 10 times longer than this one. That's going to be your high wear one.
Right.
No.
Okay.
The only time you touch that is when it's time to replace that O-ring.
So I'm sorry.
Why is this hanging off here?
That there is your drain for your
Release, right?
for your pump.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, that's where you drain the oil for the pump.
So should it be locked in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be right there. Yeah. And I believe you have another one for the engine over here too. There's another one over here for the engine. But again, you guys don't need them.
Right, we don't need
Yeah, I don't even mess with that.
So we get a complimentary O-ring kit from you guys too, right?
Complimentary. I love that word.
Can we get one? We got one set here, but you know.
So, but you're gonna need more than O-rings. You're gonna need quick connects. You're gonna need at least one extra gun, one wand, because it's not very uncommon. A wand gets dropped or ran over or something like that.
So maybe after this, you might want to take a look at. We have some other ones here because they're the same.
Yeah.
I know we just went over this, but they're the same. The 5.0.
Yeah.
Nozzle size.
Okay.
We have because we
Yeah, I'm working with Mr. Brown on that. Yeah. So he's already got a parts list of parts that he can order, and whatever you guys need. I did recommend right here. See how this is threaded in here? I did recommend a high pressure swivel.
Yes.
Because this right here, because it's rigid, when you turn this, you got to turn the whole hose. After a while, your arm gets tired. Not to mention, see how they have the guard here? That's because this is where normally hoses break the most, because this is where all the binding's at. When you have a high pressure swivel there, the hose stays still, the gun swivels. Makes this last longer, makes your arm last longer.
No carpal tunnel here.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got, unless you guys have any more questions.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.